No, that's Texas. That's Texas right there.
It's beautiful. That's what that is.
It's a beautiful, beautiful video. So, everybody, my name is Spencer Whelan.
And I'm Sarah Whelan. Hello.
And we are doing the Taste the Trail series here with the Texas Whiskey Trail. So, over these 19 nights, we're going through the Texas Whiskey Trail alphabetically, and we're tasting through all of the different certified Texas whiskeys. That sign right there. We're tasting through the certified Texas whiskeys of every distillery on the Texas Whiskey Trail. So tonight we have Lone Elm, that beautiful video that you just saw.
Yes.
And they have one of the absolutely most unique whiskeys that I've ever tasted.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to tonight for several reasons. Actually, I've heard on more than one occasion, like from completely different people at different events, in publications all over, that the Lone Elm Wheat Whiskey is like one of, if not their favorite wheat whiskey. They think it's the best in the world. People just rave about it. So I'm excited about it for that reason, because it's been a while since I've tried it, which actually I should say, like, contrary to popular belief, you and I don't drink all that much.
No, we taste a lot.
We taste a lot, but a lot of times at home, we don't for whatever reason. And so it's been quite a while since I've had some Lone Elm. So I'm excited to try it again. But also I think it's going to provide something very different than what we've tasted so far.
Yes. So
this will be very interesting to see how I do. And if you're joining us for the first time, I'm very much a novice. Some nights I've been really good.
You're getting not to be such a novice.
I got a little bit cocky last night. I was so sure I was going to be so good, and I guessed everything wrong. Yeah. So we'll try again, reset.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's do it.
All right. Well, tonight we want to welcome our guest tonight, who is from Lone Elm Distillery. He's the founder, owner, and head distiller at Lone Elm. So tonight we're going to welcome Bill Wofford. Bill, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Spencer. Hey, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
So I was going to tell a quick little story about how we got introduced to Lone Elm in the first place. And I think it was the very, very first night, the launch party of the Texas Whiskey Association. We were at Whiskeys of the World in Austin, Texas. And, at that point we had, I think, nine members who were part of the founding membership group when we were incorporated as an association, but we extended that founding membership all the way through the end of that year. And one of the first ones that we wanted to talk to was you guys, because we met that evening. I think Brandon and his wife were pouring at their table, and this kind of just came out of nowhere to us, which kind of talks about going to whiskey festivals and exploring new whiskeys that you've never heard of before, or that you may have never tried, because you can find some amazing gems in the middle of that. And Lone Elm was one of them, because we were just blown away. One, that you guys had this amazing whiskey. Two, that it was almost entirely wheat. And three, that you guys have been sitting on it for almost 5 years before you made your release. So would you mind just talking a little bit about how you guys got into business and how you sat on these products for that long?
Yes. Myself and my college buds, we used to travel to Kentucky religiously, right? And and search for that great bottle of bourbon, right? And, some of our favorites were typically the wheated bourbons in Kentucky. And we came back, and from kind of a disappointing trip, there was such a shortage. You could not get you could meet the master distillers, but you could not get those select bottles or barrels anymore. So we came back, we're partying at the lake with the whiskey we did bring home. And we said, we could make a whiskey.
That's awesome.
Everybody doubled down right there at the campfire, and we formed Lone Elm right there.
Wow.
And it was technically you guys are 5 Points Distilling. So that's 5 different partners, I guess.
Yeah. Myself and 4. Yes.
Yeah. But Lone Elm is your primary product.
Yes, sir. Lone Elm whiskey, straight whiskey.
So how long did it take you to get from that campfire to actually running your first run?
That was Labor Day 2011. Formed the company December 2011. Built the plant in 2012. Got everything installed, all the equipment installed and tested, and distilled our first batch in June of 2013.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty fast.
Well, you already
At least
have
from
some
what I've
fans
heard.
here in
Well
the
done.
comments.
Yeah.
You got Kathy Crawford who's saying Lone Elm is our biggest surprise of all the tastings at the festival. We now own a store pick from Longhorn and Beaumont.
Awesome.
And this is high praise here because this guy and his family just got done making the best bourbon in the world. And Robert says this is the best wheat whiskey he's ever had.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. See, I've heard that on so many occasions.
Yes. And I would agree. I mean, well, for one, you don't see a lot of wheat whiskeys out there in general. You see wheated bourbons, like you said, but for people to go with almost 100% wheat in the mash bill, which I think you were like what, 95? Something
90,
like that?
10, 90, 10, 10.
90, 10. Okay. So 90% wheat, 10% barley, malted barley?
Probably haven't seen whiskeys like this since the Irish Scottish moved from Western Pennsylvania to Kentucky.
Gotcha.
The Revolutionary War, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So let me ask a newbie question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you just make 100% wheat whiskey?
Good question. It's actually a very good question.
We're not able to source malted wheat here in Texas.
Okay.
Malted wheat's not common, and we don't malt. So malted barley, common. So you have to have some malt, for the enzyme, often beta amylase enzymes.
Yeah. The malt has enzymes in it that helps break down and go into the fermentation.
Okay.
So even if it's just a little bit, it's still helpful for that enzyme package.
Right.
Okay.
A very, very efficient distillery like Four Roses, very modern, could go with 5% malted barley. A less efficient distillery up to 15%. It's like some of the older ones in Kentucky. We're at 10.
Okay. Very cool. Now, have you played a lot with those percentages, or did you land on that pretty quickly?
Early on, we played with just about everything. We did small batches in 1, 2, 3 gallon barrels, aged them very quickly to find, you wanted. That took about 6-8 months.
Okay.
Nice.
What is your background?
My background, I have a doctorate in physical chemistry from Texas A&M. So
Okay.
separations, physical chemistry, distillations.
So that's all in your wheelhouse.
Semiconductors.
That makes sense.
Semiconductors, right?
Yeah.
I believe you work at Texas Instruments, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Do
My
R&D
dad
there.
worked at TI for decades, so.
Yeah, your dad was there, right?
Yes.
Now, have you guys been in Forney the whole time you've been there? Was that your initial location?
Yes, that was a locate. We searched far and wide the DFW Metroplex, and we wanted to be somewhere where we could grow the wheat. And the East Fork of the Trinity River out here is where you can grow that soft winter wheat for this product we use.
So then you grow your own wheat?
No.
Oh, okay.
We have a deal with the ranchers there. They grow the wheat. We feed the spent mash, the high protein feed back to their cows. So we got this ecosystem going
That's fantastic.
Working out for us.
Yeah, that is so cool.
And
we get one beef a year.
Ooh, that's a good deal.
that is a good deal.
That's a really good deal.
It's a good trade.
Yeah.
But and tell me if I'm wrong, but Lone Elm actually has its name roots in Forney, right?
It's what?
Lone Elm is actually the original name of Forney.
Yes,
Am I
sir,
right?
yeah. The original settlement there was called Lone Elm. There was a woman and her 4 sons from Arkansas, and they settled right there on that property, Union Hill, and formed the town. They renamed it later for the railroad, so the railroad would come through there at Forney.
Yep. Well, so you talk about, there's a lot of people out there who question whether or not there is such a thing as terroir in whiskey, right? Like the taste of the land or the taste of the location. I mean, you guys are on a ranch. You're getting soft winter wheat from the Trinity River Valley, which is right down the way from you. Mm-hmm. And you're doing all like grain mashing, fermentation, distillation, bottling, everything on site, correct?
Yes, sir. Grain to glass. And so I would say at least 60% of the character is from that. And then the other 40% is from the oak, the American white oak from Northwest Arkansas.
Yep.
And that was my next question is what kind of barrels are you putting them in?
Everything's straight whiskey. So it's new American white oak from the Ozarks, made by ISC up in Missouri, Lebanon, Missouri, right across the border there. And so there's a couple things going on there. So you've got the char. We're pretty heavy char. You can tell we got a pretty heavy character, but also the toast. So you get all those other flavors from toast. So there's a extraction that goes with a charred barrel, and there's a flavor profile that goes with a toasted barrel. And that's some of the mix. That's some of the magic in making great whiskey.
Yeah. And now one of the things that I think is interesting that you guys do is and I've said this before, like if you had proposed this kind of a business plan where you're taking a wheat whiskey, which isn't very common, you're going to go in new charred barrels for 4 years, typically, right? Because you're doing 4 years straight for most everything, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And for those of you that aren't aware, straight is kind of a funny word legally. Like you can call something a straight whiskey after 2 years, but you still have to put an age statement on the bottle.
Okay.
But if you go 4 years, you can just use the word straight. You don't have to use an age statement after that. You can just say straight. So you can say straight 3 years, or you can say straight, and that means it's at least 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, everything you'll drink from us is 4 years. And that was originally, those laws are built for 53-gallon barrels.
Yeah.
And we're still doing 4 years in small barrels. So we have much more vanilla, oak, the much darker color flavors from the small barrels.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like if you had proposed this to somebody, like an investor or something, you're like, I'm going to take a typically rare whiskey, a wheat whiskey, put it in Texas in small barrels in 4 years in the Texas heat. People would have just if I was investing in that, I don't know if I would invest in that. But honestly, what you created is something absolutely ridiculous. The fact that it works, and not only works, but it works so well. What do you think that is?
We were all sure that we were going to make a great whiskey. We're better scientists and engineers than we are business guys. And so we're all about that quality. And it's a long haul.
Well, when you say you're a scientist, what is in the science did you know that this would work? If you have a small barrel and you have 4 years of extraction, how could you know that was going to be something that you would love?
One thing I'd studied for years is kinetics, and we know that the higher surface area, the more extraction. The hotter the temperature, the more extraction. The hotter the temperature, every 10 degrees you double the temperature, the reaction rate doubles. So everything you say, if you've looked at all the literature and you tasted any whiskey, a long-term aged whiskey is better than a short-term aged whiskey. So basically what we're doing here in Texas is accelerating that. In small barrels with the temperature, we're probably 2 times faster than Kentucky on average. Yeah. With extra heat in the small barrels, a 4-year whiskey in a small barrel is like 10 years in a bigger barrel, maybe more.
Yeah. And not only that, but like there have been at least some criticisms of Texas whiskey early on was that it was over oaked, over extracted. But there's something about the wheat whiskey that you guys produce that can sit longer. Like at Balcones, a lot of the Balcones single malts are like 24 to 27 months old.
Right. And they're done.
Yeah. But there's something about this wheat whiskey specifically that can endure the smaller barrel, the heat, and the time that you're putting into it. And it comes out completely different. Did you know that going in, or was that kind of a trial and error?
There was some trial and error there, and you've got to watch out because at 4 years, you've got to be careful. You're starting to hit that oak point where it's going to get too oaky.
Yeah.
So we're really probably not going to go longer than 4 in the small barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we've got barrels that have been super hot that are too oaky.
Yeah. And just for everybody everybody watching, I want to show you. See, I mean, look from here. It looks like coffee, right? It looks like you got coffee here in the bottle, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera, and you're not going to be able to see anything.
Like just reflecting back into the camera.
I mean, this whiskey is so dense, and I got to be honest with you. The first time I saw it, I was like, "There's no way this is going to be good." Like, really, there was no way that this is going to be good because it's got to be too oaked, but it's not. And I don't want to say too many notes because we're about to get into it. But if you can make something that looks like this in 4 years, first of all, that's Texas for you. The fact that you can get that kind of extraction out of something in that short period of time. But for also for it to taste like it does, and for it to be as subtle and nuanced as it is. I mean, it's more than science. It's alchemy. I don't know how you did it, but
There is some trial and error and some science, but the science.
Now, tell me, since y'all were Kentucky bourbon fans,
Yes, ma'am.
why have you not done a wheated bourbon?
Because it belongs to Kentucky. We wanted to do something Texas. Texas, we grow a lot of wheat. Wheat's local here, and we love wheated bourbons. It's my favorite, right? And but I thought more wheat, and we just kept adding more wheat, and it just worked out. The wheat gives us a sweetness we can't get with the corn. Wheat's a problem. It's viscous, rye, wheat, viscous. So it's tougher to process than corn, and a little bit lower yield. But it gives you a sweetness and a smoothness that you cannot get with corn.
Which that surprises me. I would think the opposite would be true.
Yeah.
But that's
wheated bourbon definitely kind of like adds that smooth note. Like, Pappy Van Winkle, that's a wheated bourbon, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if but it's usually used to mellow out a bourbon,
right?
And to go all the way with wheat is pretty amazing. There's a quote here, there's a comment here that I want you to read, Bill.
Okay.
All right, let me see. It says, John Butler says, I took a bottle to Scotland to a whiskey tasting in Edinburgh. And had 25 super experienced whiskey tasters try it, and not knowing what it was, they loved it. Very amazing.
Sweet. We just had 2 podcasts in Germany too. If you get a chance to look, they were shocked. We had a 90-10 wheat whiskey.
That's awesome.
It is really cool. I mean, you have a lot of folks in the comments here. DFW loves Lone Elm whiskey. Mark is saying, same guy saying, y'all are going to make me open another one tonight after talking about it. That's the idea, Mark.
Yeah.
Open up and drink with us, please.
So tell me, Bill, how long, like in the beginning, I guess my question is, when you're working full time, how are you doing this too? Like, when were you working on it?
When we started this, I was distilling nights and weekends. I was sleeping on the barley.
Yeah.
And so it was 2 of us out there full time, just sleeping and working, right? And then we started to bring, people on with Logan and Brandon and all these other people, then started to pitch in and lighten the load,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly weekends out there now, no nights.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
Well, I think we should probably get started tasting.
Yeah, I'm kind of like on pins and needles now.
So again, you guys have a few expressions out. One's the 90 proof, and then you have a single barrel. We have barrel 360. So if you're out there, you can, and you happen to have barrel 360, you can try with us. But the proofs on them are 90 proof, which is 45% alcohol, and 109, which is approaching 55% alcohol. So but what I want you to focus on, and Bill, you feel free to kind of guide her through this process, but what I want you to focus on is not just what the whiskey proof is, but see if you can tell differences, because I think you're going to have a hard time even discerning between the proof, and that's a pretty significant difference. Right. But the single barrel versus the 90 proof, which is kind of your blend of multiple barrels, right? That's your standard release.
Right.
I think there's definitely the same notes.
Right.
And you have had it recently, because we did the Texas, the Texas Whiskey Festival blend number 2 from Crowded Barrel. And that was the base. And so we tried a little bit of it that night so that she could identify, which blend had Lone Elm in it. And she was able to find it actually pretty quickly. So I'm curious, now that you have that knowledge, if you can go back and start to pick up the notes that you're finding.
So one of these is a single barrel, and one of them is the 90 proof.
One of them is single barrel at 109. The other is 90 proof, a blend of multiple barrels.
One hint. Ooh. Be sure and hold the front tongue and hold on the back of your tongue, and you'll be able to tell the difference.
Okay.
When you started to do this, Bill, what were your primary... Did you have like a flavor profile that you were going for, or did you try to move in a direction based on what you started with?
No, we started from a wheated bourbon and moved everything we liked and more about that the wheat. And the more we went with the wheat, the more we liked the smoothness. If you do a very long distillation, very fine cuts, that allows you to make that very clean, sweet flavor, and allows you, of course, to age.
And you got a beautiful Vendome still there, I should also add.
It is pretty.
What's the capacity of that still?
We're 500-gallon batches, mash, ferment, and distill. We're grain through, so we grain in the whole way.
Great, yeah. Distilling on grain.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's really good.
That's the one thing you're supposed to not say.
Can't help it. I'm sorry.
That's the one thing you're not supposed to do in this whole series.
I'm the worst.
And you've just totally like fallen off the wagon after 9 nights.
I know. Well, but that's my first reaction.
But you know what? That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Let me sip on the second one.
So I'll tell you what I don't want to influence you too much, but you said you started with the bourbon, Bill, but did you know that you wanted to go caramel? Did you know if you wanted to go, with more of a kind of a subtle caramel flavor, or did you want to get a lot of vanilla out of it? What were you aiming for when you tried?
We were looking for strong vanilla and a strong fruity profile.
Okay.
And the surprise there was the local wheat, the black cherry. Oh, am I not supposed to say that?
Yeah, that's fine.
No, it's fine. Coming.
She needs help with it tonight. She's just like, I like it.
That was a surprise that we stumbled upon.
So, okay.
So I have a guess.
You have a guess of which is the 109? Which is the single barrel and which is the 90 proof?
I think this is the single barrel.
Okay. Why is that?
This is the 90 proof. So is the single barrel higher proof than the 90 proof? Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, so just based on the heat and the warmth of the alcohol, you could tell. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you notice flavor differences between the two?
Yes. I think the 90 proof is where I'm getting a lot of the vanilla.
Okay.
Like the smoothness. I have not figured out a note yet from this one.
All right. I'm going to give you a note that I have the...
Other than like it's a higher proof, which is how I really distinguish it. But it is a very different taste.
So the first thing that I noticed about this when I tried it, I guess almost 2 years or a year and a half ago, was how viscous it is, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys can see here on the camera. I'll try to make it clear, but I mean, the color is there for sure. The viscosity is there. It really sticks to the side of the glass. You don't really see a lot of legs. But the note that I get almost more than anything is buttercream. You know, I like kind of that really strong, like fresh, like icing buttercream that you if you have or a cream cheese or a cream cheese icing or something like that, where there's a sweet note that hits you front, but then it's kind of followed by a buttery caramelness, you know?
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
You're not getting that?
No.
What are you getting?
Well, initially, so I just added water. I haven't tried it yet, but initially I got a lot of the wood.
Okay.
A lot of the oak. And that
on
was
the nose or on the palate?
On the palate.
Okay.
So I want to try it a little bit more, which Bill, talk a little bit, because you told me before we started that what you do is add water. So can you explain like how that helps and what your process is?
Yes. When you add just a little bit of water, right, you lower the solubility of all those heavier organic compounds in it if they start to come out and get in your nose. So if you just keep adding a little bit of water, you'll keep the solubility and different things will come off based on their molecular weights and vapor pressure. See,
it's so interesting to me because it's so earthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so surprised you're getting like a buttercream.
Almost all on the nose. I'm not talking about the palate.
Oh,
but for me, like, I don't know, Bill, do you understand what I'm saying with that? Kind of that sweet caramel. But I mean, caramel's there for sure, right? Yes. I mean, you can't have a.
Okay, I'm getting a little bit of it now on just the nose, but I don't get it on the palate.
But it's that vanilla. You know, you're getting that strong vanilla from the new charred oak barrel, just like you would in a bourbon or anything like that. But when you add that much extra time and the caramel notes for it, to me, it gets buttery. And a lot of people describe wheated bourbons as kind of buttery and smooth too, right? So when I say buttercream, that's kind of what I mean. It's almost like a vanilla cake that has kind of a buttercream frosting on it, and that sweetness is there. And then on the palate, what I was surprised by, because I would expect like astringency of some sort,
Yeah.
but it's not there. Like that deep tannic that you've had on some other whiskeys that you've noticed recently, that tannic after finish isn't there.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
Yeah,
which is so surprising to me considering it's in Texas for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like I would absolutely expect that.
Yeah.
And I don't get a trace of it.
And I totally get the black cherry as well. Like almost like a cherry extract.
Yes. Yeah, that's the malic. That's the malic acid. It's a 4-carbon chain.
See?
That was a wonderful surprise with us, right? There's a little bit of pear, but the black cherry is really dominant.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're getting the oak lactone and the ligand, all those are coming in there, but you're not getting that harshness. And that's that accelerated reaction with oxygen to form esters and ketones and removing those harsher flavors that you get with a younger age whiskey.
It's just amazing to me how different these taste.
Yeah.
When they're essentially everything's the same.
Yeah. Same process.
I mean, I know this one is a blend, but still
it's a single, it's a release from a distillery. It's blend of their barrels.
Right, yes. But that's what I mean by blend.
Yeah.
Which maybe I'm using that term incorrectly.
Well, technically, when people say it's a blend whiskey or blended whiskey, it means it's multiple distilleries.
Oh. So then what do you say when it's like because most everyone does this where they use multiple barrels of their own.
You could say it's a blend or a release, but I mean, the verbiage doesn't matter. I mean, yes, you can call it a blend. I just to clarify that you guys are not you guys are not
blending any whiskey. Yeah, it's all the same whiskey, but one thing you understand is when you have 4 or 5 different guys cooking, fermenting, distilling, you get differences. Even the subtleties come out to play, and slight differences in the oak, barrels coming in, slight differences in temperature where they're stored, how tight the barrel is. Barrels that leak more, not as quite as tight, have a bigger headspace, have more oxygen. And then, what time frame of the year they're aged in, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in the summer most of the time, then you lose less water. You lose more alcohol. If you're in the winter, more water, less alcohol. So these things all come into play.
Right.
And that's another thing we were talking about, because we had Gulf Coast distillers on a couple nights ago. And one of the things I tell people that I'm they're always surprised to hear from me is that in most of Texas, the proof is going up over time. In the Gulf Coast, it doesn't, because of the humidity down there. But you're in the North Texas region, specifically east of Dallas, and you guys get a lot of pretty intense cold fronts. You're at the kind of the lower edge of Tornado Alley there.
Right.
Like we had a bunch of storms today. Do you guys have some storms tonight as well?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So those cold fronts that come through do some pretty quick extraction back into the barrel. And then you'll have another 95-degree day. And what kind of loss are you seeing in barrels, especially when you're talking about smaller sizes?
The smaller barrels, the loss is enormous. It's a very bad business model. The barrel, the barrel makes a great whiskey, but it's a terrible business model. The barrel costs the same. It uses the same stave and same labor as a large barrel, so it's exactly the same cost. But the barrel manufacture quality is not as good as the large barrels, and the leakage, the loss is higher in a small barrel. So the bigger the barrel, more hydrogen bonding, the more the liquids in contact with each other, the least amount of loss. So small barrels we usually have at least 50% loss.
Wow.
That's
insane.
In
a 4-year barrel. That's
usually what, a 30-gallon barrel?
In the 15s.
15s. Gotcha.
This is everything you're drinking tonight's 15 gallons. So the ratio of oak to whiskey is very high, right?
Yeah.
You guys do some 30 gallons though, right?
We did 30 gallons in 2017.
Okay.
15 to 30. Flirted with that. Didn't really like it. Moved to 53. 53 is the only cost-effective way.
So you're going into 53s now?
Yes. Everything's 53 No.
So what do you, as far as time, what do you think you're going to have to do to age that to get the similar profile that you were getting in the 15s?
At least 6 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, but hey, you got, hopefully you got some more runway now,
Right.
Do you move the barrels around a lot?
We do not.
Okay.
I think it would be beneficial to move the small barrels to keep them wetted so they don't leak as much. The big barrels are too hard to move.
Gotcha.
Of course, you could do that, but the big barrels are almost impossible to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The loss is much less in those, so it's not as critical.
So somebody here says he's drinking a 7-year-old bottle of 92 single barrel 109. Amazing.
Amazing, because I'm drinking 108.
Oh, there you
go.
A very good year.
Fantastic.
13. This is from 13. This was our Ultimate Spirits winner where we won the Chairman's Trophy.
So wait a second. That's from 2013.
Yes.
But didn't you start distilling in 2012?
Oh, we did these. This was barreled in 913.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a 2-year. This is a 2-year that won a Chairman's Trophy.
But still, look at 2 years. Look how dark that is.
Small barrel.
Yeah.
Man.
That's incredible.
Well, it's important that we talk about this though for a second, because we had an initiative at the association last year. The TTB put a bunch of proposals out. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that aren't aware, I'm not going to get into the deep, dark recesses of federal regulations, but the TTB is the one that governs, and that's who you guys have to pay taxes to every time you take alcohol out of bond. But the TTB set some new rules in place to modernize spirits. And one of them was that they were trying to define that a barrel is a cylindrical oak container of about 50 gallons or so. And we made a pretty big push last year to say, no, that's not okay. We need to have room with barrel sizes to experiment. And I'm telling you folks, this is a perfect example of why you need to have the ability to test, and especially when you're a young distillery.
Exactly.
You need to have that ability. And thankfully last week we found out that they decided to strike that rule down and not go forward with it. So thank you to all of you who have been watching and participated in that last year, because it's already paying off. We're making good spirits.
Yeah.
I
should do the Sarah Got It Right dance over that, because I didn't do the Sarah Got It Right earlier when I got it right. So yay!
Okay.
It put small distilleries at a huge disadvantage to try to get some product out. You've either got to put out a substandard product to generate revenue, or you've got to use small barrels.
Yeah.
So that law would kill small distilleries.
So here's a question from Trey Kuntz. He says, Bill, does all the product go into the barrel at the same proof, or do you proof down before it goes in?
We have to proof down for straight, right? It has to go in at 125 or less by law.
Yeah.
And you do that by adding water?
Yes.
By adding, rainwater.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys got your own rainwater collection there on site,
sir.
right?
Yeah, we use the local water, which is high in calcium, minerals for the yeast. The yeast love that. But all our dilutions are from the rainwaters. Nice, clean rainwater.
Now, how do you do that? Do you just kind of slowly start adding water until you get to the right percentage?
No. We measure the proof, calculate how much water we need to add, and go to that proof. We prefer about 120 proof in the barrel. I think that is the best proof for the barrel. 125, I think, is a hair high.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
But so proofing down before the barrel is one thing. Proofing after the barrel is another thing. How do you guys do your proofing after the fact if you're not doing a single barrel release?
A single barrel, of course, is just coarse filtered. I mean, it's crudely coarse filtered. We leave all the higher alcohols in there, all the higher, and so that's what makes it dry up on the glass, right?
Right.
And leave that unique smell. And Sarah, you can, if you let this dry on the glass, let it dry out.
Yeah.
Really smell all those different ketones and esters.
Okay.
So you see
you just let the glass dry out and then taste and then smell it. And so now our small batch, we do a lot of processing. So we taste the barrels. As we're tasting the barrels, we pull each barrel, I taste, and I say small batch or single barrel. We find a barrel we really like, that goes into a different pile. Then we take 15, 20 barrels, and we blend those together to make what we think is a consistent product for our small batch. It's not consistent like Maker's Mark or WLR. It's still very craft, right? And we do that, and we chill haze filter that at at 20 degrees F roughly. Chill haze filter that through cellulose. That takes out some of that color. You'll see a color difference between those two because they start out the same color. But it takes out some of those higher alcohols that you can taste on the back of your tongue, and that's what makes that higher proof smooth. And that's why you want to leave those in there in the higher proof, so it's not smooth on your tongue on the back. If you chill haze filter a whiskey and leave it high proof, it'll be astringent, too strong on your tongue.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I did filter that and then coarse filter it.
I did what you suggested, Bill, and I had kind of sloshed it around. I don't know what the technical term is.
Sloshed is fine.
No, but I totally smell the buttercream now.
Do you?
Exactly what we're explaining.
Yeah.
I didn't get it at all before, but I'm totally getting that now.
Yeah.
This is why people like drinking whiskey.
Yeah, because
right?
you're like I said before, it's connecting the two sides of your brain together, right? One side's analytical, trying to, Bill, you're a scientist, right? Yeah. I mean, you understand the analytical side of this, but there's an emotional component that when you hit those notes, that your emotional side of your brain connects and memories are formed, and you get this kind of emotional feeling around it one way or another. It's like, oh, that reminds me of my grandmother's farm or something like that. What does your product remind you of? I mean, I know you smell it all the time, so it's probably a lot of your own memories of producing it. But when you first got into this and you're like, man, I've made something good, what did it remind you of?
That's a good question. What did it remind me of? The sweetness of the early moonshine reminded me of my grandmother's distilling in Arkansas, on the back part of the farm.
Yeah.
Just a good memory. And then the mash, the cooking reminded me of wheat bread. It's just like wheat bread. You sweet cream of wheat. And that's just, kind of like that childhood memory, right, of those sweet, buttery cereals, right, that you get for breakfast when you're a kid.
Yep.
Fermentation, that's kind of just a beer moment, really. I mean, it's just, it reminds you of the wheated beers. And I love Hefeweizens, right? So it just brings that whole Hefeweizen beer thing to me.
Yeah.
And tasting the distillation, I mean, that is just awesome, right? Taking the distillates off, tasting, and it's not consistent the whole way, right? You start off with the heads and you're smelling those early esters and, some harsh organics, and it goes sweet. It just goes totally sweet. And wheat whiskey goes totally sweet. Just a little bit of water into that white dog that's coming off, and it's just super sweet in your mouth. And finding that place at the end, cutting that tail, don't keep going. Find that sweet spot where you get the whiskey you want in the vault, and stopping, right? There's an urge to keep going, right? Because it's a monetary thing. Which I think our distillations are about 12 hours. So we do those long, fine, slow distillations to give us that beautiful flavor, as opposed to like a continuous distillation, right? Where you blow it up with steam and double it, right?
Yeah.
Controlled. That's mass production, right?
Yeah.
And then each distiller who distills comes out slightly different. And that's very crafty, unique. So everybody makes a different product when they're distilling.
Yeah. Well, when you started this company, when you started saying, hey, I want to distill something, it sounds like you had a little bit of like family history and understanding of the basics of it. But I mean, there's no master distilling program in Texas. There's
zero.
This is you learning over time and being an engineer and going to A&M. How did you decide that this is something that I can do? I
had the confidence to do it, the training, right?
Yeah.
Not the exact training, right? But I had all the pieces, right? The kinetics, the phase diagrams, the physical separations, the chemical testing. I had that knowledge.
Yep.
But putting it all together, there were some bumps. There's not there are some classes in the U.S. They're not very good. They're not hands-on enough. We had to get out there and get dirty. And There were a lot of tricks to be learned, real distiller tricks that we did not know that are not in the books. And we learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, we talk about this sometimes too. You know, there are a few established whiskey regions in the United States, Kentucky being the most significant, Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, a few other places. You know, the Pacific Northwest is kind of an emerging area. But what I think is interesting is that almost everybody that's on the Texas Whiskey Trail started this locally, right? They're first generation distillers for the most part. Yeah. And nobody was really teaching them. And in a way that I think is an amazing benefit to our distilleries is that it's going to be different because they weren't being taught by the tradition, right?
Right.
Correct.
There's a certain freedom in that to just not feel like you have to do things a certain way, but to just try it and see what, you know, throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks and what works well.
I quote it all the time because Jared says it, but Jared says it took us 10 years to figure out the kind of whiskey that Texas wanted to make or wanted us to make. Right. And I feel like there's a lot of that, especially with a product like this, is that, like I said, it doesn't make business. It didn't make a business sense on paper, right? To go small barrels, wheat in Texas in 4 years or more, that doesn't sound like a thing that'll work, but nobody told you couldn't, so you did.
Yeah, I think there's a spirit here in Texas, you know, come and take it, come and drink it, right? Yeah. That spirit is strong, right? And this is Texas, and we're going to do it our way, right?
Well, and you, especially because, you know, you're an Aggie, and we kind of have that attitude here. You know, I'm a Longhorn, you're an Aggie, but we all have that same attitude of like, well, all right, let's see what we can do. Come on, bring it on. Let's try.
Yeah. Well, I have a question that's not really about the whiskey, but it's more about the tasting room, because I want to talk about the experience a little bit when you go out there. It just kind of feels like an oasis. You're near a lake. I don't know. There's something about driving down the road that leads to the distillery. I don't know. I just get relaxed when I go out there.
There's no pretense. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And so you go in your tasting room, and it's the most amazing, like, I'm not going to describe it well, but like the log panel wall. I don't know if that's what you call it. It's so cool. Where did you get that wood?
We, that's rough sawn cedar we got from up around Pottsboro.
Okay.
And the pine ceilings and everything that comes from Tyler. It's all local, small sawmills, you know, little. So we tried everything we did there, we did by hand. We did it ourselves, and we tried to be Texas with it. Everything's Texas, right? Yeah. And so we're a small Texas business, and we want to support small Texas business.
Yeah. Well, and I think you definitely achieved that. It's so cool and it's unique. And we're broken records talking about how every place, every stop on the trail is really different, but it really is. And this is like none other on the trail. So it's really cool. I'm excited to get back out there.
Marcus at Blackland, which is, you know, in Fort Worth, just, you know, about an hour or so away from you guys, was saying that a lot of the trail members will go to Blackland, you know, after they visited, say, Deep Ellum or you guys. And, you know, they'll be like, yeah, that last place was in a barn, and this place is in this this cosmopolitan tasting room with like these high-tech stills behind us. And it is really amazing. Like, you're just, 30 minutes maybe outside of downtown Dallas?
45 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, but it feels like you're in a different world altogether.
Well, and now that I think about it, I hadn't made this correlation until you talked about it, Bill, but the fact that there was no one paving the way, right? There were no courses. There weren't anyone that you really could look to other than maybe talking to other distillers in Texas. I think that's what's created something that's so unique and different, because you weren't trying to
replicate Kentucky. You're trying to create Texas.
Right. And it created something so different and so unique and a great experience that complements the experience you would also have on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Like, it's not a direct competition. It's just its own thing. And
as it hopefully should be.
And I think as a consumer, I would find that super interesting, that Oh, well, I've done the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, so I've kind of like been there, done that. It's like, no, this is so different. Like, do both, get the different experiences and see where we like maybe draw on some of the history there, but where we also do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
You get such a dichotomy in Texas.
Yeah.
Out to the hill country, up here, it's not Kentucky. Kentucky, very similar landscape across.
Yeah.
Distilleries fairly close together, have different products with the same recipe, as you well know. There's a huge dichotomy here in Texas, just distance alone, and the climate, soil, everything's changing so dramatically, right?
Yeah.
What I do think we borrowed from Kentucky, and I got to give Kentucky credit here, is the camaraderie between the distilleries.
Yeah.
Everybody helps everybody. So it's
I love that.
I think we got that from Kentucky. I got to give it there. They've
Well,
always worked together.
Yeah. And I have to say, Kentucky, everyone we've talked to and worked with, I mentioned last night, Marcia and I were both amongst several other Texas women were at the symposium last year, the Bourbon Women Symposium in Louisville in August. And everyone has just been so lovely. Everyone that we've worked with has been so encouraging, willing to help us out. It's really, I don't know, it's really cool to see. It's a unique thing that you wouldn't from the outside necessarily think was going to be the case. And it has. So I love that we're kind of able to grow out of something that has so much history, and they have beautiful products as well. So
yeah, there's a couple of questions here for you, Bill. One is, how does a distillery go about selecting their yeast? It's not like you're starting your own wild yeast sourdough starter in your kitchen.
Yes, that was some of the toughest for us. And we're a blend of yeast. We do not use a single yeast. We blend yeast. So there are so many choices. The French make 1 billion yeasts. It's the wine industry's just proliferated 1 billion yeasts, and so it was difficult. It takes so much time to try different yeasts, different blends, and come up with that flavor profile. And you're looking at that, the ingredients in the cook part of that 1/3, and then you're looking at that yeast fermentation. So the yeast selection, and the temperature. And one of our secrets is we very finely control our fermentations. The products you go too hot, you get better yields, but you get some different products. You go too cold, it's too slow, lower yield, different products. So controlling that fermentation temperature is critical to a smooth spirit.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about that.
Yeah.
So that yeast is another 1/3. Then of course the aging, how long you age, what you age in, temperature, that's the other 1/3. So I'd say it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
How do you test yeast? Like, do you bake with it? Seriously,
No,
how do you because I don't imagine you just taste the yeast.
We started out tasting it. We absolutely tasted it.
Yeah, okay. But by fermenting it and then tasting it?
Make the sour mash.
Okay.
We spin it up, taste it.
Gotcha.
Then go to the sour mash and taste it. And that was speeding things up a little bit, but we had to go all the way to the end. There was no shortcuts. So that's where we did all that small experimentation in small barrels.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, I want to talk about this because you're obviously a scientist and you're an engineer. You understand the science of what you're doing. But like when I visit you guys, there's not a whole ton of spectrometers and stuff. You're doing a lot of sensory perception. So like,
absolutely.
I think it was a meeting that we had at Balcones. One of the sensory, I think Gabe and some of their sensory team were like, look, the receptors in the nose and the palate are still far and away above what anything that we could do technically can tell us about the whiskey. Would you talk a little bit about that and how you combine the scientific side of it and the sensory side?
Yeah, so we did do some early analytical GC mass spec and looked at different techniques and everything. But there's nothing and that's the science side of me, right? Where I looked at, all the different ppm and ppb byproducts, the congeners in this thing, and looked at all of those. But how those come together and mix and get to the end, that's sensory. So that's tasting everything. That's tasting the wheat, tasting the barley, tasting the mash, tasting the pitch mash, tasting the sour mash, tasting is coming off the still, and and diluting that down, just like I talk about. My favorite thing is dump some water in that white dog and see what's really in there, right? Slowly build, take that down. Now, it's tougher as you get older, or you're out there more and more. You get better at it, but it's tough because there's so much going on out there. There's so many smells and flavors, and it kind of overwhelms you at times. You might go from mashing to distilling or fermenting or out in the pasture, whatever. So there's a lot going on. So you got to clear your palate a lot with water.
It's funny, as you were saying that, I was adding a few drops of water into the 109, or the single barrel, and all of a sudden I got tobacco.
Yes.
Like a pipe tobacco that I had never, or I hadn't experienced tonight until just now. And it's been sitting in the glass uncapped. So it's got a little bit of evaporation, a little bit more concentration, and just adding that little bit of water turned it into just not a subtly flavored tobacco, but not just a straight pipe tobacco, but more like a subtly flavored one. And
sometimes you get that, like that flavor on top of licorice.
Yeah. In fact, I think I saw Tim in the comments say that he gets a lot of licorice and anise flavors in Lone Elm specifically. There's a couple folks in here. One was, I think I missed the comment, but somebody was saying, "Yay, it's the bacon room," and that's what you guys call your tasting room, right?
Oh yeah, great. Yes, that rough sod cedar. When I go in there, it just makes me think of bacon. Bacon's my second favorite thing: whiskey, then bacon.
There it is.
That's a perfect description of it.
It is. It's like strips of bacon.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm hungry every time I go in there. It just looks like bacon.
Yeah,
It's my second favorite thing.
Yeah.
Lynette says, looking forward to going out there when this pandemic is over. Lynette, we could not agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whiskey's piling up. Get out there.
Kilko on YouTube says, hitting up 7 distilleries in Austin was his first whiskey trail experience. Kentucky's got a lot to live up to now.
All right.
That's high praise, brother.
I love that.
Let's see. There's some folks saying that I think there were some more questions about, oh wait, where is it?
Right there. Is that the one you were looking at?
Oh yeah. So yeah, Stephen Crawford says, "Oh wait, are y'all a sour mash distillery?"
Yes.
So you're transferring your sour mash throughout all of your distillations, or all your fermentations. I mean.
Yeah, we're back setting and everything. Yeah, we're
what
based
does sour mash.
sour mash.
So just like a sourdough, you have your starter, and then you split it, and then you use that same yeast strain over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that's a sour mash versus a sweet mash.
Gotcha. Okay.
Science.
Yeah, I tried someone gave me some sourdough starter, and I tried to make some sourdough bread, and
she made sourdough bricks.
Yeah. No, they were like just a little bit bigger than my hand. They were like over 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
They were really heavy. There were a lot of things I think went wrong, so I can't really pinpoint one thing that I did, but
I was taking the whole loaf and trying to smash it against the table. It was nice.
Yeah. So hats off to you. You all make it sound so easy.
Yeah.
Especially when you go on these tours and you're like, yeah, we do this and then we do this and we do this. You're like, okay, great. And it's complicated. And yeah, I think it really takes an artist touch. Yes, the science is in there too, but that's not enough. You have to have that kind of natural ability, I think, and talent for it. So
the science is so complicated, from mashing to biochemistry, everything. You've got to put some kind of personal sensory touch to this whole thing, right? By tasting, smelling the whole way. Otherwise, you would chase it all day with chemistry and analytical. You couldn't possibly do enough.
Yeah.
One question that I get from a lot of folks, because this is kind of the era that we live in, is everybody's either gluten-free or keto. And, and one thing that I heard you say is that you're getting a lot of the ketone flavors that, you're saying that from a scientific perspective. That's where the word keto comes from, folks. If you're not familiar, it's ketones. But a lot of people are afraid to try a wheat whiskey. It's like, oh, I can't, I'm gluten-free. I've had people tell me that. Would you dispel that myth as a scientist?
Yeah. Gluten's a huge protein. We distill very lightweight molecular. Yes, we've had a bunch of, I've won every bet on this. And people put gluten-free, but it's irrelevant. You cannot distill gluten. It's impossible to distill a protein. It's a huge organic molecule, right? So yes, the wheat we're just 100% gluten going in, but we're gluten-free coming out.
Gotcha.
You cannot distill over those proteins. You may get some when you're out at the distillery, there's a lot of gluten in the air because we're grinding, distilling, that kind of stuff. But what comes over is light molecular weight, 4 carbons or less products. Proteins are hundreds, thousands, right? So it can't. Yeah. So yeah, I won every bet on gluten-free. I said, you get sick, I'll pick up the bill.
So there you go, folks. If you want a keto diet drink that's gluten-free, cheers to you.
Yeah, my sister's celiac, and she has many whiskey and bourbons.
Oh man,
regularly.
That's one of her favorite things because she is gluten-free.
Yeah.
So let's. There's a couple questions in here. What other whiskeys are in the works at 5 Points for Mark?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. So this last year we've made chocolate caramel barley whiskey, which was awesome. Now I got to tell you, it's like 800 and something flavors, and I bet that it wouldn't come across, and I was wrong. Caramel did come across, but a different version of what you'd expect, right?
Yeah.
So, chocolate caramel whiskey, barley whiskey. We made straight barley whiskey. We made our next product, though, however, is going to be a wheated rye, and that's going to production next month.
Wheated rye, huh? What's your percent on that?
The rye's 60%.
Okay.
60-30, 60-30-10, probably. Okay. Roughly. But the rye is so viscous, it's impossible to work with. It's just like a nightmare.
Did I hear you say you were doing a straight barley?
Rye are 51%, right? Because they want to be 51, because anything more than that is really hard to work with.
Did I hear you say that you're going to do a straight barley whiskey?
We're toying with this version of these. We've got a lot of Scotch drinkers that are used to a barley and some wheat grain profile that really like our whiskey. We have a lot of these small used 15-gallon barrels. Barley or Scotch drinkers are used to used barrels. They're not expecting the super strong lignin oak tones, right? So we can take those barrels and put them to good use and make a barley whiskey.
So now when you say a barley whiskey, are you talking about a malt? So
a single malt whiskey.
A malt. Okay. Just didn't know if you're going to go with an unmalted barley straight.
No, it'll be a malted barley with some slight things added, but we're probably going to build that. Here's our problem, right? Every time you do that, you're taking away from your normal production, so there's a trade-off, right? So they'll be in smaller quantities, but our next big release is going to be the wheated rye.
I can't wait for that.
It's ready.
Yeah. I'm really excited for that.
We'll be tasting that in May. I believe it comes out in May.
Okay.
There's one thing that I'd be very interested to see at some point is the secondary use of your barrels, because you're not creating a bourbon. This isn't an ex-bourbon cask if people are reusing it. But this note, I mean, you could almost do. It won't be called a bourbon because it's not a new charred oak barrel, but you could almost do a bourbon mash in this and get a wheated style bourbon, flavor with your amazing wheat whiskey already in the wood.
Yes.
So
it's about 3 to 4 pounds of whiskey stuck in the wood.
Whew.
The devil's cut, as they call it. It's hard to get out of there.
Yeah.
Purging the barrels, it's kind of takes a lot of time and effort, right?
Yeah.
So here's a question. Have you ever thought about a hop whiskey?
A hop whiskey. We make some hoppy beers. We make beer. No, we haven't. We're willing to, if he wants to do one, let's do one. We do master classes in distilling and fermentation. So you bring a few of your buds out and we do a team thing where I teach you everything from scratch to finish.
That's
cool. Teach a class and you do it yourself. First Saturday, you mash and distill. First Saturday, you mash and ferment. Next week, you come back and distill. So a lot of our R&D is with these whiskey clubs or guys just interested in gals and out and do their own spirit. And those people are hardcore beer drinkers or beer makers, and they want to try their beer recipes out. And that's where I've lost some bets. Those beer flavors would come across. I was wrong, because some of them do, which is slightly different, but they do come across.
Yeah. So what do you do with your barrels once you're done with them? Do you use them again?
We sell them mostly to beer people. The smaller ones, they go to beer people who want to age stouts or whatever in the whiskey. And then, of course, we sell some of them to the secondary retailers.
Yeah.
But the bigger markets for the 53-gallon barrels, right? The larger barrels, right? So most of we're small barrels now. So mostly beer guys.
Gotcha.
Robbie has an idea. Whiskey toothpicks. Why not? I'd do it.
I bet someone will.
So just one thing I want to show, if I don't know if y'all can see it here on the glass, but if you could see how much particulate has kind of evaporated onto the side of the glass and how foggy it's gotten just sitting here over this last 30, 45 minutes. It's amazing how much material is in that distillate when it evaporates. I think one day I accidentally left it out with about this much in the glass. And at the end, there was this disc of candy. It was just this amazing aroma. It was like better than any candle that you've ever bought. No offense.
That's okay. I would buy a candle that smells like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, look, we want to thank you guys so much for what you're doing. I want to thank you for being a part of the trail. You guys, we'd be remiss to say it. We didn't talk about it too much, but you guys have helped in the sanitizer effort as well. Sarah was working with you guys, and
we got an email just through our general email with the Whiskey Association asking for some help up kind of near you guys with a nursing home type facility. And so I emailed all of the DFW guys because I wasn't sure who was doing what at that point. And Brandon stepped right in within 5 minutes and had her taken care of and got some stuff to them. So
Brandon's working that issue directly.
Yeah, it's awesome to see what
I'm sequestered.
So everybody, we ask you, please continue to support our efforts. Continue to support these guys at the distilleries, because without the foot traffic right now, obviously everybody's kind of hurting from that perspective, but distillers are especially so. One, because they have more restrictions on them. They're only allowed to sell 2 bottles per person per 30 days and not allowed to sell on Sundays and a whole bunch of other rules that we have to deal with all the time. But when you compound that with what we're dealing with right now, and the fact that you guys are mobilizing on sanitizer and still doing your own distillation, and you still have to keep operations rolling, it would be really helpful for everybody to give you guys as much patronage as they can. Right.
Absolutely.
Everybody's hurting, and it's, got to band together to get through this, right? It's going to be a huge shock to the economy. A lot of people out of work. So,
well, tell people where they can, if they can't get a bottle of this right now, is there a way that they could order at stores? What liquor stores are you guys in? Is there a way they can order online?
Yeah, you can order online. Just go to our website. We're in Total Goodies. You should be able to get it. Total and Goodies and Specs, limited specs, but Total and Goodie. And a lot of the small liquor stores really support us, right? And are people still able to come up and pick a couple bottles up? Yes, they can. Yeah, we'll do car service at the distillery.
Great.
Fantastic.
That'd be a nice drive. If you're looking to get out of the house and just you're going stir crazy.
Socially distance in your car.
Right. Yeah. No, seriously. It's a nice little ride. You get your bottle and you can enjoy your ride home while
the bluebonnets are still out.
That's right.
You can still enjoy the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll be very happy when you get home.
Oh, yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Thank you guys for forming the trail and making the experience for everyone. I think the Texas experience is a big one, and just big as the state of Texas.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, we thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Say hi to Lindsay for us, and cheers to you. Cheers to your health. We thank all of you guys for joining us. We're gonna leave you with the video that we started with, in case you didn't see it, but give you a little bit of a taste of what it's like to experience Lone Elm in person. So see y'all and talk to you soon.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.